Hey, what's going on, YouTube? Hope everyone is doing well. Welcome to another episode of the Great Black Speakers Podcast, where we connect through conversation. I am your host, Lawrence Watkins. I am the founder and CEO of Great Black Speakers. I'm also the president and chief operating officer of the Black Business School. So today we're connecting you with my great friend, Angelina Darrisaw, who is the C-suite coach. So she's going to tell you all about what she does, but she basically helps people in their careers to live or to be happier in them and to also progress as well. But she's going to explain it much better than I can ever do so. But today we're going to be talking about how you can make more money on your job in very little time. And with that, Angelina, how are you doing today?
Good. It's so good to be here chatting with you, knowing that you're all the way in Colombia. So, very excited to be here.
Yeah, so way down here in South America, New York City connection going on right now. So, for the people who don't know, like you're pretty amazing. Followed your career for quite a while, seeing all the things, the wonderful things that you've been up to. So, can you tell the audience, what it is that you currently do and how you got to this point in your career?
Yeah. So, I run a coaching business. It's an organizational coaching business called C Suite Coach. And we really focus on helping to scale diverse entrepreneurs' businesses on one end of the business. And on the other side, working with diverse working professionals to help them get promoted and level up in their careers. So, really, the goal when we think about C Suite Coach, we think about coaching to develop C suite leaders. And there's two ways we look at that. One, from the lens of small business, how do we prepare more diverse entrepreneurs to grow and scale themselves? And from the lens of in the workforce, how do we develop the skills within working professionals to help them level up to the C suite? Our overall mission is to create leadership that's actually reflective of the workforce.
Got you. So before we get into your story, can you tell the audience why that's even important? So why is it important for, us to have more diverse representation, either in corporate America or having, very successful, sustainable, larger, Black-owned businesses?
Yeah, so definitely when we look at the stats right now, we are in a space where if we look at just women, for instance, women make up over 50% of the workforce, but they're about 19% of executive leadership. So we don't have equity, and there's tons of documented research that goes to reflect what happens when there is a more diverse workforce and leadership for that workforce. So, for instance, better bottom line, increased revenue. Those are things that have been documented over and over. So businesses that prioritize diversity and have diversity on their boards and at their executive level tend to perform better. So it's about sustainable business, but also for me personally, it's about equity and creating environments that everyone can thrive in and see themselves represented in when they look at leaderships. As a young person in the corporate world, having limited examples of leaders that look like me definitely affected my confidence at different points and made me feel that perhaps growing in my career may not be for me. So we really want to alleviate that problem and create a workforce where everyone feels primed to grow and to be the leader that they should be.
Got you. And I want to get into that, way more here later in the interview. But before we even do that, let's talk about how you even got to, own and start the C-suite coach, right? So what was your path to like making this your full-time career?
So I started when I was working full time. If there's anyone out there that is working a full time job and has an idea or a passion on the side, I just want to encourage you. You definitely can do both, and in many ways, your current employer can probably support your growth. But essentially, what was happening was a couple different things. I was getting promoted in my career, and I found that at every level that I was growing, there were less women, there were less people of color, and I was the anomaly in the room. And I had come from a pretty humble background, and being promoted at work really changed opportunities for both myself personally as well as my family. And when we talk about equity, that's part of it. Getting promoted at work can give you hiring power, the ability to influence, the ability to support candidates that are going to support your interests because you have the financial resources to do that. So when we talk about getting promoted, it's not just the title, but it's the economic empowerment that comes with growing your career. So that was happening to me. In my first job, I made under $40,000. And just a couple years later, through being promoted pretty rapidly, I was able to be in the six-figure range in what was then called the millennial 1%. So making over a certain amount. And that changed the game for me. I was able to be debt free from my student loan debt by the time I was 26 years old. And that helped me get to a place where I could start to think about launching a business. So as all that's happening, and I'm trying to think what's going on in my career, what's positioned me for this, one thing that really stood out was the access to professional development and coaching that I had. And I wanted to be a part of creating that access for other people. So while I was working full time, my company was able, because I was a senior manager at the time, to sponsor my certificate of coaching at NYU, so at New York University. And I started my coaching practice right when I was working, especially after studying and learning the fundamentals and the really getting grounded in the history and foundation of coaching and being trained as one.
Got you. So that's a lot to unpack, right? Because that's a very interesting story in terms of you coming from humble backgrounds to do what you do now. So I guess my next question has to do with that. So what is a typical path or just a common path for someone who may not have the social connections when they're young, who may be just on scholarship when they get to college or just whatever, just don't come from that sphere of investment bankers, management consultants, and just people with these high power positions. What do you find to be the path for them to achieve at a very high level if they want to go the corporate route?
Yeah, so the famous saying is if opportunity isn't presenting itself, or if there's not a seat at the, I think it's Shirley Chisholm who says, if there's not a seat at the table, pull up a chair. It's about creating opportunity. And if you're someone that isn't coming from a place where you have maybe a wide network from your family in all of these different institutions, what can you do? How can I empower myself to create those connections? So it could be looking into professional development programs that will help create a network for you. So there's, especially you mentioned college and university age, there's organizations like Sponsors for Educational Opportunity, T. Howard Foundation, Emma Bowen. All of those target that age range and they provide internships. So that's one thing I would be looking into. The other thing I would be thinking about is, am I really clear on what it is I want in my career, what I'm looking for, what I'm seeking, if it's a job opportunity, if it's a mentor? So one, get some clarity on what it is you want, and then start to make it part of your networking pitch. When you meet people, don't be afraid to say, hi, my name is Angelina and I do X, and what I'm looking for is Y. Can you connect me to that opportunity? Because that's part of how you create opportunities for yourself, by really being bold and asking. Those that don't ask aren't fed. Closed mouths don't get fed. We have to put what we want out there.